Hello, everybody. Welcome to Living the Liminal this week. I am so glad you're here. We are in a 3-part series. This would be our 3rd part. I'm so excited that we're back. I am with Melissa Lyons. She is a self-discovery expert, best-selling author. This is our 3rd episode, so we talked the other 2 about her sweet, tender-hearted books that are just amazing and the experiences that she had bringing them into the world. Our 3-part series is titled Permission and Choice as Agency for Change. Big whopping words. Truly, it just means, being open to your journey and what you are here to discover, what you are here to learn, what you are here to evolve into in the essence of becoming all of who you are, your true self. So we've had some amazing conversations, Melissa, about permission, choice, empathy, and trusting our sensitivities. Melissa and I are highly sensitive, so we are constantly evolving into that role, right? That way of being our true selves within that. And we're back for this 3rd one, and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be here, and I learn so much every time I talk to you, so I'm just excited and grateful.
I learned so much from you, and that's what sparked this kind of co-creating. I'm going to use Melissa's words, or co-hosting. Same thing. You're co-hosting, you're co-creating conversation, and we bounce off of each other. She teaches me things. She makes me see things differently. I do the same for her sometimes. It's not like we're aware of it. It just sort of happens when you trust. So in that relationship, as we talk about choice and permission, there's a huge amount of personal trust that I think we have to have in ourselves. Do you see that?
Yeah, personal trust in ourselves, in trusting that we know that we're never alone and that we're always guided by our intuition, which is another word for talking about our higher self or our soul or our, just that it's just more than us. And if we can really let go of trying to be something and just be I am, like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, just be here, and whatever happens, happens, and it's in the best and highest good for us.
No, oh my God, I want to seriously jump up and down for you saying that, because I have always felt, am I the only one that is confused by things like intuition, higher self, the divine, God, inner guru? Like, what are we calling all these things? I don't know. Can someone just tell me what to do? Because there's so many names for things. And I love how you just simply said, like, whoa, just be who you are and just allow it.
Well, yeah, and even invite it. How about even more than allow? One step further, invite it. Like when I start, I have these little numbers I repeat. I do 14 times 1, 8 times 2, 9 by 9, and these, they mean something for me in terms of like my own protection and guidance. And I always ask, please come through me. Like, let's do this together. Whoever you are, whatever you are. I just know that I don't want to do it alone.
Oh my gosh. So,
I'm
okay. I know you're not meant to. And see here, I love that word invitation. It's like literally giving me chills right now. Like, I want to cry. Like, I literally, the emotion of, I really want to cry through this, because, okay, whoever's listening, watching, whatever, the concept of inviting it in versus, oh, I'll handle it when it comes. I can handle it when it comes. Inviting in means that you are actually working with all of who you are and this divine orchestration of this bigger life that maybe you may never understand the bigger part of life. Like, maybe we're not supposed to.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter. One feels way more powerful than the other. Like, one feels good. One feels like that freeing feeling you get when you're a little kid and you're just running aimlessly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when you just take off and you're just running around and you have no idea. You're just happy to be running in the big open field. Like, when I think of freedom, that's the image that comes to me, is being a young Kristi in this big, beautiful, open field filled with flowers and trees and green grass. And I am just running, and my arms are open, and I'm just taking it all in. Like, that to me is the idea of freedom and inviting that in. And then peace to me is just stillness, just being still. Like that's peaceful. So when you invite those in, wow, they kind of feel different.
Hmm. Yeah, and we also invite our angels or our spirit guides and all these other things that everybody may or may not have in their own awareness or desire to have. But I want my angels and my people to be doing signs and synchronicities and showing up for me. So it's like, okay, come on, everybody, let's go. Kristi's ready. We're gonna have our interview. I bring them all in with me because
Yeah.
yeah, then I just feel it's like you said, it's more fun.
Well, the other day, yesterday, my son, people send me hearts all the time because they know my story. They know that I don't even know how many years ago I wrote it in my book where the first heart came in. I was in a moment. I was walking on the side of the street. I was in what we would call in the human emotion, distress. I was working. It's kind of like I was doing a walking meditation. I was working it. And I know there's a fancy name for that, but I was walking and working what was going on in my body, in my mind, in my life experience. And I was trying to find the peace, and I was trying to find what the purpose was. And I was trying to understand, what are we all supposed to get from this? Like this is here for a reason. We got to work through this. And in that moment is when I saw the first heart. Well, okay, that was literally like 10 years ago. I mean, it was a long time, maybe even longer, 12 years ago. So I've been finding hearts all over the place and sharing them. So people will always send me texts or emails, or they'll say, oh, I saw a heart the other day, or, whatever. I get that a lot. And it's always been other people. So, clients or people in the community or whatever. But yesterday, my son, who is literally in a moment of his life of discerning his life, okay, in a lot of ways, getting to know himself. That's the age that he is. He sent me this picture and he's like, Mom, the hearts always come to you, but look what came to me today. He opened up his chicken sandwich, and on the chicken was literally this imprint of a heart. And he sent me the picture. It like made me jump for joy and cry, because this is the reason why. It's not so much about the heart. It's because he connected to something outside of himself that now, like you say, co-create. He now understands the power of co-creating. He's not in it alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool.
And when you get to that point, if you're not at that point and you're listening to Melissa and I today, follow Melissa and I. Reach out to Melissa and I. We can help you find that place, that space. I call it sacred space, that sacred space of knowing that you're not alone. You don't do it alone. You don't go alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like you, Melissa. We talked about that. I love the numbers. I love the hearts. I love the way that sometimes moments just happen and you just are like, what are the chances that would take place? And you just start laughing.
Yeah, it's so cool.
When was the first time you had that kind of experience?
Well, that question has to be like teased out a little bit. When was the first time I had the experience, or when was the first time I was aware that I was having the experience?
Okay, I would both, but go to whichever one you want to
Yeah.
start with, because
Well, because
you're
I'm
right. That's meaty.
yeah. Well, I mean, as a little girl, I remember having things that happened that didn't make sense, that nobody understood, that just got shoved, like swept under the carpet.
Right.
So that was the first time that I remember, and I think I was 8 or 9.
Mm-hmm.
But as an adult, like grown now, where I'm like totally aware of, like the coolest one maybe was when I channeled the book,
Okay.
not
Yeah.
knowing that I was channeling until months later.
Yeah.
And then not even understanding what I was channeling until 18 months later. Like 6 months later, I understood I channeled. And then 18 months up from the beginning, I understood what it meant. So it's like it never stops.
No. No. I've said on this show, and I've said, I'll get words that I mean, I did it this morning. I got on my social media and I had an image that came to me that was like, okay, use this. I took a picture of it yesterday because it kind of got nudged me. And then today I get on and I just start. And then what I have to do is I end up having to go back and read it a few times. And I think, well, where in the heck did that come from? Like, it just sort of floats in this understanding. So when we talk about channeling, that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah, because you're like really not conscious of what's happening, and you're not like directing it in any way. You're just like
Yeah.
literally surprised, and you're reading it for the there you go. It's like you're reading, if it's writing, for example, you're reading it for the very first time.
And
And
no matter how many times you read it, it's as if you're reading it for the first time.
yeah, probably, or you get something different. And there's also one more, well, there's many ripple effects, but the one ripple effect is so in I Will Always Love You. I'm actually working with a woman who I met her months after she lost her 9-year-old child, and he was only sick for 9 weeks.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was really something. And the thing that she remembers from our very first meeting, which was at a hospice, was I said to them, and I didn't know the power of these words until she made them like gave me the ability to see them that way. I said, this book is through me, not from me. So as you're hearing or reading these words, you have to understand like they're not directed in any way by me. And for her, that opened up the whole gateway for her to understand that her son was speaking to her.
Yeah.
So that's a co-creation on a different level. Was me giving up the ownership of the material that allowed her to receive it in a whole different way.
Yeah. That's like when I sit with, or like I have in the past, sat with clients and done those kinds of readings with them. And it just comes through. It comes for me, it always came as like a body sensation or an image. And then I would start to kind of just let it flow as if like it was water coming out of a faucet. And I never knew what anything meant. So I could definitely see that subtle sensation of it wasn't my mind doing anything with it. It was just coming out of my mouth from someplace else. It was a very subtle sensation for me.
You know what's that's fascinating, and you know what's so funny about what you just said is the analogy you use is like water coming out of a tap. What happens to you when you're experiencing that, when you're channeling? Don't you doesn't your nose start
Oh
to
my
run?
God. Yeah. Because just now, like I've started to
That's
say last
water coming out of a
episode,
tap is what you said.
and it's doing it again. It's like my nose starts to run and I'm
Yeah.
not stuffed up. It just starts to run. So if you're watching this on YouTube and I do this, it's because I have no Kleenex. This gets me every freaking time. When spirit is channeling through me, it's my nose just runs. It's
So funny. And
That's
people will find their
hilarious.
own things. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing is my eye starts to twitch to where I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on here? And my eye will just start going, there's an energy right there. So um, people have
Fun.
all different ways that it works through them. I love this story. So how does our audience really make choices from a place of, because that's what you and I are doing. When we are giving ourselves permission to channel, right? To allow the divine to work through us. We're giving ourselves permission to be that for the divine, to be that messenger for the other person, to allow our bodies to have that work through us in that way. How do other people, if they don't want to channel or do that, that's not what this question is about, but how do we make choices from a place of worthiness and the freedom versus feeling so constricted that we can't allow that kind of energy to work through us?
Well, I think that we make better choices when we choose to align to things that make us feel good. So you're making the choice because it's what you want, what feels good, not because what you think you're supposed to do. There's no guilt, there's no strings attached to what you're doing. You're not doing it in a sense of obligation. It's because it's actually aligned. And we can't begin to do that till we are really clear about what we want, number one. And number two, our frequency, our vibration has to be high enough that we are attached to something. We don't have to be, we're always channeling whether we want to or not. Like there's always something coming through us. But the quality of what comes through us is directly related to how high our vibration or frequency is. So if we can turn that up, then everything gets better. And if we don't turn it up or we turn it down, things start to feel a little bit worse.
And I think a great way to know that. So if you're listening and you're like, what are they even talking about? I
Yeah.
think a great way to notice, okay, is go out for a walk. And when you look around, what do you see? Do you see color? Do you see vibrant color in a way that you've never saw it before? Do you hear the animals and the birds and the wind in a way that you've never heard it before? Like that to me is a great way to start increasing the vibrational frequency for how you take in everything that's going on around you, so that you begin to notice and are aware. Because then you start to be aware of more and more of the divine orchestrating through you all the time.
Yeah,
Think, or do you
totally.
see it different?
No, I see it the same way. I'm just thinking for some people that might be too airy fairy or too
Okay.
altruistic, but I totally agree and see it. The other way is like how Esther Hicks says it, is just care about how you feel. Plain and simple. Just care
Yep.
enough about yourself to care about how you feel. If you're feeling crappy, you're going to get more crappy. If you're feeling mediocre, it's going to be mediocre. Like whatever you're feeling is like, it's like literally turning the radio station to that feeling of what you have. And if you're on that station, that's what you're bringing in, that's what you're putting out. And you can't put out great when you're broadcasting from mediocre. And
Yeah.
life is just like that. Like, so yeah, I love what you're saying and being out in the nature and stuff like that. But some people are like, I don't even feel like leaving the house. I don't even feel like putting my makeup on today. I don't even want to get dressed.
Yeah.
Then just have the awareness, and you're choosing to broadcast from right where you are.
I love the way Mel Robbins talks about her story is the 5 4 3 2 1, which is she couldn't get out of bed. And so she just arbitrarily was like, all right, here's the deal. Like she's talking to herself. Okay, I'm gonna count down and I'm gonna get out of bed. I'm just gonna do it. Like I'm just going to do it. That Nike, just do it. And and that's kind of what you're saying is you have to notice, am I feeling good? Do I notice in my life different? Do I want, and then you start to go, do I even, is this how I want my life to be? Is this what I want for my life? Is this what I want for me? What feels better? What would feel better? What's the next? And I love how you use the radio dial. I used to use that with my kids when I was trying to get them to calm, like to get quieter. They used to look at me like, we don't even know what that is. I'd say, okay, pretend you have a dial right here and you're on 10 and I need you to go to like a 6 right here in this experience. So I'm like, take the dial and turn it down like a TV show. Turn the dial. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. That's what you're talking about. Like dial up or dial down. Like you have to change your frequency.
Yeah, not volume, frequency. But
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like let's talk. Can we talk about thought nutrition? Because we're lining right up for it right now. So
Right, we're right there that it's all of, yeah,
yeah,
totally. Tell us what you mean by thought nutrition, because you used that a long time ago. And I was like, oh my God, we never really talk about that. So do that for us.
okay. So because it's perfect for what we're saying. So we put food and drink and stuff into our mouth for our body. And then however we nourish our body is the type of body we have. So if we eat only junk food and only food that's not good for us, we might be lethargic and not in the best shape and not always feel good. We might carry some illnesses versus if we're eating whole food and really caring about what we eat, like we feel better, we have more energy. Okay, so that's simple. But our mind is no different. And in fact, it's really tough to feed our body well and nourish our body if we're not nourishing our mind. And the thoughts that we have in our mind are no different than the food that we put into our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you can think about all of your thoughts as having nutritional value for your soul, just like food has nutritional value for your physical wellness, the nutritional value of your thoughts actually have frequencies. And this is based on David Hawkins' scale of consciousness work. So there's all these emotions and feelings, and courage is actually in the middle at 200. And everything on the one side of courage would be like restrictive, like jealousy, revenge, hate, grief, sadness, judgment, like all of those feelings and emotions that tighten you and not make you not feel so good. Those don't have high nutritional value for your soul. You still need them because they're messengers. They're things that we need to like transmute through our body. They're there for a reason, but we want to have a limited amount of that in our thoughts. And then on the other side of courage, on the higher expansive side, is hope, love, freedom, joy, like gratitude. And as I'm saying them, you feel like you just feel yourself becoming more expansive. So we want to have as much of those as possible because they have high nutritional value for our soul. So that's the thought nutrition in a nutshell. So if you could imagine you've got a grocery cart and you want to feel good, and you stand in the junk food aisle with your grocery cart, what are you going to put in? Right? You're going to see the chips, you're going to see the popcorn, you're going to see the chocolate. And so, yeah, we want to have a little bit of that. But so where you are and where you're living is what you're putting into your cart. So if you're that person, like you said, Mel, getting out of bed in the morning or whatever it is, like just understand that where you are living is what you're having the most of. And you need to make a conscious effort to slowly but surely start to think better thoughts.
Yeah. And again, like, because this series was all about giving ourselves permission, for some of us listening, for some of those listening, giving yourself permission to think a different thought than the one that's surfaced for you right there, right? So give me an example of a below 200, below courage. Let's just use that, below courage. A below courage thought. What would be a below courage thought that I might have?
Regret.
Okay, so we were talking about regret last time. So
yeah, that was set up, wasn't it?
Okay, so regret comes in. It's a below courage. So when I think of regret in my body, I think it tenses up. Okay, I feel like my being just kind of caved in a little. So I feel kind of like crunched over, caved in, and I kind of get that look on like, what's going on? Okay, that's to me regret. So I'm kind of describing. So if I'm going to shift to another frequency of feeling, a different feeling, a thought, which do you think, wait, I'm going to ask this question. It's coming to me. Which comes first, the feeling or the thought?
I'm so glad you asked that. So, okay. Well, the thought and the feeling are almost intertwined, and there's different people have different ideas. I don't think that you need to know that. What you need to know is whatever you're thinking is going to invoke a feeling. And then that feeling is going to cause you to take some sort of action. And then that action is going to lead to a consequence and an outcome. So you're thinking something, it gets a feeling going, and then you take action, and then you have the outcome. And when you're doing something, when you're on that bottom scale, it's going to have a negative connotation with it if you start with that. So let's say your regret is you screamed at your child before they got in the school bus that morning.
Okay.
You regret that. So the first thing is, like, what can you do about that? It's in the past. Nothing. So in this moment, holding on to that regret, can you change it? Can you change what you did? No. Can you change how you feel about it? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So how else could you look at the regret? Okay, I did the best that I could. My daughter probably forgot about it 5 minutes later, and I'm still carrying it on. It wasn't probably as bad as you thought it was. So think about as many different ways you can think about what the regret is about, because you don't want to stay in there, but it's coming up for a reason. It's coming up because it's asking to be released.
Yeah.
Giving you the
Yeah.
invitation to release it. So think about ways. So let's go with like I did the best I could because you know what? Like my washing machine just broke and the water's all over the floor. So I screamed at her because she was late and I didn't want her to fall. So I was really protecting her and I did the best that I could. And she probably forgot about it. And when she gets home, I'm going to give her the biggest kiss and hug ever. So you haven't actually chosen a new thought, but you've processed it in a way that you're actually feeling hopeful and excited
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
compassion for yourself because you're
I was going
human.
to say there's a lot more compassion for being human and understanding that human. We don't have to be perfect at the roles that we play. And you can go back into that relationship with your child and own what you did, own why you did it. You can teach them all about love, love for ourselves, love for each other, love for the experience in and of itself. And now you've acquired a new emotion that has more frequency, and the possibility is unlimited then for it to kind of go in all different ways.
Exactly. And you know, frequency kind of makes it be technical. And I like to add that. But if it's too much for anybody to think about that, it's just imagine now that you've just gone from like being so mad at yourself, like, oh God, I did it again. I said I wasn't going to do that anymore. I'm the worst mother ever. God. And then, and you're making up in your mind what she's thinking and you're doing that versus, oh, you know what? I did the best I could. And you go there. And then now all of a sudden you're like 5 minutes later, your husband calls and instead of like biting his head off because you're upset about what you did, you're like, hey, how's your day going? You know, like I'm gonna make some cookies because when our daughter comes home, I just want to like it's just it opens up new pathways to things that are better, which shows you how you're gonna bring in. Now he's not gonna yell at you for yelling at him, and it's not even related. But how many times does that happen? Where one thing happened and it leads to 10 crappy things for no good reason.
Yes. And it's never, when you're yelling and screaming in a moment, it's never about that moment, really. It's just that moment was the impetus that opened you up to reactive or
Mm-hmm.
acting upon an emotion. Like you said, action comes from that emotion
Mm-hmm.
that then derived from a thought. And if we can have more healthier thought nutrition and what we put into our thoughts. And it doesn't mean that sometimes you're not going to have an unhealthy thought. I mean, come on, we're human, it happens. It's about being aware again about what are you putting in? What are you attaching to? And how is that orchestrating to how you're acting? And is that who you want to be?
Exactly. The only way to change the outcome of your daily activities is to change what you're putting in. The only way to have a healthier body, if you're not doing well with your physical nutrition, is to change what you put in your mouth. Well, if you want your life to get better, change what you allow and carry it in your mind. And my goodness, Chrissy, like if you've just lost someone that you love, you are going to spend time in grief. And you might even spend a week or two in grief, but the awareness of understanding that I am vibrating at a lower frequency because I have lost the love of my life and being
Mm-hmm.
aware of it, but also then saying, but I now know that grief is is a very low vibrational thought in the scale of emotions, like thought, emotion, doesn't matter what you call it. Those words to me in this exercise are interchangeable. So how do I get out of grief? Knowing that I'm going to stay in grief? Well, I'm going to think about the three things I loved most about them. And then I'm going to think about the three funniest things they ever did. And then I'm going to think about the three best things we ever did together. So you're still allowing the grief, but
Mm-hmm.
you're adding in aspects that are helping shift it ever so slightly. And the more you do
I
it,
think that's an important part is we're not bypassing
no.
the lower emotions. We're not saying they're not important. We're not saying here that, oh, get out of them quickly. You don't want to be in them. They're not good. That's not what we're saying. I think what we're saying is the body has the agency, the willingness, the foundation for holding both. One is a gateway to the other. You can hold both.
Yes, absolutely. That is so valid. And the other thing, we've talked about this before, but we forget to remember. We forget that we create our world with each thought that we think,
Mhm.
right? And so as we're thinking negative thoughts, we are creating a negative pathway to our next moment. And that can change as quickly as our next thought. So there are times when we are going down like a slippery slope of negativity,
Mhm.
and awareness is enough to catch us and then allow us to do what we need to do to bring us back towards where we want to end up. Because you don't get in your car and just head towards the cliff going, yeah, I think I'm just going to drive over the cliff today. Well, I mean, I'm using that metaphorically, like I'm just saying, like we pick a road, we pick a path. We're very deliberate with our vehicle, our bicycle. We need to be as deliberate with our thoughts and
Mhm.
where they're taking us. And when we wake up in the morning, decide how you want to feel at the end of the day. Because if you want to feel like you had a good, meaningful day aligned with some great purpose, that will at least bring you back to that purposeful day as you get pulled off your track.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like here's what's coming for me here is, when you talk about like courage is the middle. Courage is the middle, right? That's the neutral place. That means that you're never without courage either. You always have it there. And that we have this vast array of emotions available to us at all times. We may not have the words for it. We may not know what's happening, but we have the feeling sensation available. It's an infinite resource of all of these emotions from one spectrum to the other. And courage is always there in the middle. I think that's why they kind of say courage is in the heart. Like you gain your courage from the heart of what you're doing, right? You access it from the heart of who you are. You access courage. And like literally this is like an aha for me here in this moment as you're talking, but harmony within that heart of who you are is understanding that if I go one way on courage or the other way of courage, right? I can still have harmony going both ways as long as I go back the other way too to harmonize it. So we have notes like when people are playing music, there are high notes and there are low notes, but it's the combination of all of that that creates this vibrancy of life, feeling all of it and just owning where you're at and saying, okay, I don't want to stay in sadness, but I'm having a little bit of sadness with this moment, or I'm having a little bit of rejection in this moment, or I'm feeling a little bit of this in this moment. Oh my gosh, wait a minute. I have courage of heart. It's always there. It's right here. Access it in the center. And now I can get to the other side too. Doesn't mean bypass the sadness. It means what's also available to me.
Mhm. Yeah, I that's such a beautiful way to summarize it. And the only thing I would add, because I think like you have everything, is just remember that you're heading towards something
Yes.
that you chose in the morning. It's like I want to go to bed feeling like I loved people, or that I set an example that uplifted people.
Yeah.
And then at least when you're like as you're sitting on courage and you're not sure which way you're going to go, it's like, oh yeah, but this is what I really want to do with my day today.
Yeah. You get
So,
to
some of
decide.
you get to decide, and it's deliberate and it's conscious. And if we
Yeah.
don't make it deliberate and conscious, then we forget to remember that we do have a higher calling here, and it's to feel good, to feel joy,
What,
feel
what
love.
coming to me when you said it's the same as like food you put in your mouth. Like there are moments that all of a sudden you catch yourself eating something and you think, this is terrible. Why? I will, okay, I didn't even finish that thought, but what came to me instantly was, do you remember when like your kids were little and they went trick or treating and like they got candy, or they were at school for a party and they got candy and the candy would come home, or maybe it was a holiday and they got candy and the candy came home. Okay, some of that candy was gross. And then you would be a parent that was like mindless in the moment and you take some piece of candy and plop it in your mouth and then realize like this is disgusting. This is not even good. Why am I, and you take it out, right? I kind of think you're saying too, like that's what we need to do with our thoughts is when you notice the thoughts coming in and you're like, I don't really like that thought. That doesn't feel good in my body. That we can then say, wait a minute, I'm gonna put that out. I'm gonna pull that out of my head and I'm gonna put something else in there in place.
100%. And imagine like you have two different things that you can do on a Monday night, or let's maybe Friday night. You might have a group of friends who who are going drinking and smoking and doing things that you don't always feel better about the next morning. And then you have some other group of friends who are like, I don't know, going gardening or for a hike in the mountains. Like knowing that like where you go down the grocery store with your
Yeah.
card is what you're going to put in your buggy, who you hang out with, who you spend your time with, who you answer the phone call from. That's what
Yes.
you're putting in your buggy in that moment. And so you got to be very careful about what you're putting in your buggy or what you're just going to be like, yeah, I don't think so.
And I'm going to even push us farther to say it's not about the role you play. Get out of the expectations that what defines your action or your choices is the role you play. It is not about the role you play. You have to tune into your heart and your soul and become so aligned to that part of you. That determines what you choose.
Yeah, I love that. The role you play, what you do is not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the role you play is what you do. Like the real, true, authentic role you have in life is literally making sure that you are connected to your center, which is your heart, which is
Yes.
your peace, which is your grounding. And if you're doing things that don't make your heart feel good, you really are being invited to ask yourself why you're doing it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you feel you must do it, which there's nothing that we have to do, we don't have to do anything, and we can have this debate on a whole other call or a whole other thing. But there's nothing we have to do. Everything is a choice. Every
Mm-hmm.
single thing is a choice. And so if you're doing it where you feel like you don't have a choice, then you better look. You can look at it differently so that you can find a way to want to do it. Because if you're doing it because you think you have no choice, then it's an invitation to really look at it differently and get something good out of it, or don't do it at all.
And so many people I hear are locked into jobs that they feel they can't get out of, relationships they feel like they can't get out of, decisions they feel they can't get out of. And at any moment, you can decide differently. You can decide. You have free will.
Mhm.
And like you said, I love that you even added that caveat, because sometimes we have to stay in a job. Okay, get that. Then you know what? Then your next learning is, how can I see this differently? If this is where I need to be and the world is showing me I need to stay in this job for a reason I may not understand, then how can I see this differently? If this is a relationship I feel like I'm still supposed to be in, then how can I see this differently? If I
Mhm.
can get to a place, if I get to a place where I say, oh, this relationship is not working for me and there's no about, then you get out. Like you can choose to get out of a situation, or you can choose to see it differently. You can choose anything you want. It's up to you.
You can. And if you feel like you're in a situation that you have no choice about, call Christy. Call Christy, send her an email, like call me. I don't know. Just tell us, because I have a couple of people in my life who believe that they have no choice. They do. And I have given them every single opportunity to see it differently, and they won't. So I now no longer have the conversation with them anymore. It's over. I will never have the conversation with them about these things that they think they don't have a choice about, because
Mm-hmm.
there's no point. They have decided that they are going to be defined by this lack of choice that they have. So we get to choose that too. If you don't think you have a choice, then you
You're
are
still
choosing to
making a
define
choice.
yourself.
You
Yeah.
know, we are always making choices from one of two places. Either consciously, which you then have the agency for making that choice. You are making that choice with full understanding or even partial understanding, but you're making that choice. Or you are making choices from an unconscious place. And if you don't know why you're doing the things you're doing, that means it's coming from an unconscious place. If things are happening in your life and you're just like, why does this keep happening to me over and over? Okay, then you're choosing from an unconscious place. By all means, find a resource that can help you discover the blind spot, that can help you journey to that unconscious place and bring it into the open, so that then you can make choices from a place of worthiness and freedom versus locked into old patterns, old conditioning, the way it's always been, the role I play, something I feel like I have no choice over. You do have freedom. It's available to you every minute of every day.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of really important things in our conversations, Chrissy, but this is the most important one.
Mhm.
And the next to like, so how, what you think is going to direct where you're going in your life. It's literally where you're looking is where you're thinking, which is where your life is taking you on that path. And then you have a choice about how you think and then how you feel about what you think, and then the rest will flow from there. And the other thing that's just, it's just such a close cousin that I have to say it is taking 100% responsibility for your choices. 100%. You
Yeah.
don't have to judge yourself and hold yourself hostage because you made a decision that wasn't the best. But where you go from here and what your choices are, take responsibility for them, and that gives you freedom as well. It doesn't feel good, but it gives you freedom.
And I think it goes back to just what Maya Angelou said that we talked about in the last one. When you know better, you do better. Once you, if you
Yeah.
don't know why you're doing what you're doing, but you start to kind of go, I don't know that I like feeling like this anymore, or I don't know that I want this pattern to keep showing up in my life, or why are none of my relationships working out in the way that I want them to? Those are invitations to then start to figure out why you do what you do. And when you know better, then you make different choices. You choose, it's a permission to just live life in a much different way, and knowing that it circles back to you're never alone. You may leave relationships, you may let go of a job, you may, but you're not alone in all that.
Yeah. Never.
Yeah, well, this is like, yeah, we just keep coming back full circle to things like you're never alone and you have choice. And I think that whole concept of giving yourself permission to change is inevitable. So we're either gonna walk with change or we're gonna fight change. It's one or the other.
And what you resist persists, right? And like, and we can say like I didn't have a choice that somebody passed away. I didn't have a choice that somebody was taken from me or that somebody left me. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're faced with what you're faced with in this moment, and you have 1,000% choice here on how you recover, how you find yourself, how you recreate yourself with this emptiness that you're faced with. If that's the
Yep.
case, like it doesn't matter what you're faced with, there is a way back to the light, and everyone's time frame to get to the light will depend on the choices they make, and there's no right or wrong. And
Right.
how
It's their
easy or
journey.
hard it is also going to vary, and
Mm-hmm.
that can change depending on who you work with as well and what you do to support yourself.
Yeah. The nutrition you have. What are you nurturing in this process of living life?
Yeah.
And what are
Yeah.
you accepting? What are you allowing? What are you fighting against all the time?
Yeah.
And you get to have it
Yeah.
be different.
Yeah, and I do work with the healing table, and in my healing table, people who are in that come with grief, but it's not grief necessarily a loss of life. There's grief of all sorts.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about like wherever you stay and wherever you live in that thought nutrition scale or scheme. Look, I don't know if we can add a picture of it at some point or we can add it in the notes, but when you look at the picture of thought nutrition, you actually see where you live most of your day in your mind on the
Yeah.
scale. And it's like where you actually see yourself gravitating to with your habits of thinking
Mm-hmm.
is really defines where you live. Where you're thinking is where you're living, and that's what you're
Yeah.
bringing more of. And so you have to find your way to steer out when you're ready.
Well, I think readiness is a big part. Readiness and willingness.
Yeah.
You have to want your life to be different. It really kind of starts with your heart kind of tugging at you
Hmm.
that you want your life to be different. You don't know how it looks. You don't know what different means. Like you said to your husband that time, you know, I don't know. I don't know what happiness looks like for me. I just know I'm feeling something and I have no words for this right here. But I also know it's supposed to be not like this.
Yeah, and you can also not know how to see your way out of it either.
Hmm.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah, we don't know
So
what we don't know.
yeah.
When I was supporting teachers in the classroom, they were new teachers. They were brand new, first year, second year teachers. They didn't know what they didn't know until they were in the middle of it, of the challenge, and they'd be like, what am I supposed to do? And that's where the resources came. That's where you learn.
Mm.
You learn in the moment when you don't know what you're supposed to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the invitation. And if you
Mm.
either are ready to accept the invitation and you're willing to do the moving, you may not know what the movements are, but you're willing, or you're not ready for it. And if you're not ready, that is an okay place to be too.
100%. You're never in the wrong place. It's just, where do you want to go from here? You're exactly
Yes.
where you're meant to be because it's where you are. But where do you want to go? Where do you want to end up? Where do you want to be with your next thought? Because
So
that's going to direct where you go.
change is inevitable. That is just a universal law we don't get away from. Change is natural, it's organic. So there's always going to be change. How you decide to move through change, you are either flowing with it and taking in the lessons and the learning and becoming something quite different, new, or you are fighting against the change, again, from an unconscious or a conscious place. Sometimes we fight against things consciously. So you're either doing that, you're surrendering, or you're holding on. I mean, there's like these common dualities in everything. It's not, nothing's right or wrong. That's another duality. It's not right or wrong. It's where you are.
Yeah.
But just know that if you take a look and you just kind of stand still for a minute and look around your life and you're thinking, I don't really necessarily like everything that's going on in my life. I'm not sure I'm happy all the time. I don't feel good all the time. I've got all this going on. Okay, that's the revealing. That's the wonder. That's the revealing to, okay, what do you want? You get to decide where you go from here. You either stay or you move.
And recognize when you stay that you're actually not staying because nothing stays the same. So when you stay, you're actually not moving forward. You're just
Mm-hmm.
moving somewhere else. You're always moving toward or away from something. So I guess if you're not moving toward it, you are moving away from it.
I've used this visualization with clients before and it's coming up, so I'm going to share it. And that is, if you are in a spot where you're not sure what Melissa and I are even talking about, and you're like, what are they even? I don't get this, blah, blah, blah. But you notice something in your body doesn't feel quite right, or you notice thoughts are just constantly, they just feel very like they weight you down. They just feel icky. Say icky and yucky. You're lucky. We're going to use Melissa's phrase because it's so purposeful here. If you are in that spot, the visualization I often use with clients is for them to go into an empty room in their house, a room in their house, any room, it doesn't matter, and stand looking at one of the walls and just look at what you see. Take all it in. Do you see a mirror? What color is the mirror? Do you see a couch? What color is the couch? Do you see curtains? What color is the curtains? Do you see a fireplace? What color is that? How's it formed? What does it feel like? Take that all in. And then turn around and face the other wall. You don't see it the same. That's the invitation for change. Change is going to help you in your life be different, see it different, experience the difference. There's more available to you. When you turn in that visualization, when you turn and look at the other wall, you have an experience that then that's only going to get better, because now you're like, wait a minute, that couch that I looked at before and said it was just smooth and green, I'm now noticing that it's got this little ripple thing on it. See, you go deeper. When you shift perspective, you go deeper. When you change, you go deeper, or you fight against it. You can stand there and look at the other opposite wall and be like, I don't see anything different. This is, you're either fighting against it or you're flowing with it.
Love it.
Oh, wow. Melissa, this has been so much fun with you.
It's been great. Kristi, thanks. I love our conversations so much.
I do too. I always welcome them because they are such a reminding for me. Sometimes you say things and I'm just like, oh, yeah, and you make me think different. And I appreciate that about you. And I love the fact that we've offered our audience so many worthwhile ways of looking at life, ways of feeling differently. None of it is meant to be a right or wrong. It is look at where you're at and ask yourself those important questions. Is this what I want? And if it's not,
Is this how I want to feel?
and is this how I want to feel? Big important stuff. We will have lots of information in the show notes. Melissa, thank you again so much for this 3-part series. I am so appreciative that you were willing to show up and be a part of Living the Liminal these last 3 weeks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. And audience, remember who you are. Brave confidence, courageously choose you, be the change, embrace your growth, expand your awareness, all the things we talked about today. You are a beautiful soul. There is no doubt that is a truth that you cannot deny. You might be trying to deny it, but it is part of who you are. You are a beautiful soul. I love you. Peace out, my friends.